Alright, I think enough time has passed to where I am ready to share my best of 2024 list. And like every list, there are some movies that I missed out on that I probably won't see until the near future ahead. And it's always too bad because, one of these movies sometimes could have made my list. But, I think I've seen enough and I thought this was a really good year for movies, so I'd like to share some of my favorites. And I also want to say thank you to anybody who has watched, whether it be one or other videos this year on this channel. I got started doing this about 10, 11 months ago, and as you could see from the video links I'll have in the bio, I think I've gotten better at this whole format, and I'm going to continue trying new things, further kind of perfecting cool content onto this channel as the year goes by. So thank you very much. The movies on this list are ones that have inspired me, stimulated my thinking, and really, in my opinion, either pushed the boundary or introduced new things into like the movie world. On this channel, I've kind of wanted to emphasize more of the cutting edge works in movies or books or other things. So generally I kind of take a stance more toward those, but that's not to say that there weren't some great popular movies this year as well, many of which also made my list. So I'm gonna get started, but before I get to the very best, and I didn't make like a whole worst films of the year list, but if I could take one more shit on a movie this year, it is this one. Yeah. This movie did the opposite of the feelings that I just mentioned the best of list did. Strange Darling was not good. Obviously the movie was geared toward like a film fan, and I don't know, I found it super forced and lame and gutless, and we're just gonna move past that. A lot of people enjoyed it. I'm stoked if you did. I did not like it at all. So right, on to our honorable mentions, and there were a lot of honorable mentions, but I cut it down to like 7 or so. Want to mention Dee Dee, want to mention A Traveler's Needs, want to mention Red Rooms, I want to mention Megalopolis, I want to mention The Substance, and I want to mention RachelOrmont.com. And one more honorable mention, maybe the honorable mention, is A Different Man by Aaron Shinberg. This movie is spectacularly made, and while it didn't hit my personal top 10, got really close. Just the influences that Aaron uses on this movie, they are diverse, they are interesting, it's a very New York movie. I really enjoyed it. And of course, Sebastian Stan is great. He's been getting accolades for this, as he deserves. So, A Different Man, highly, highly recommended. It's like my number 11. So, at number 10, I have This Closeness by Kit Zauhar. This is her second feature, and she has been continuing the mumblecore movement from the 2010s. Outshores like the Duplass brothers, Joe Swanberg and Greta Gerwig were cooking up, and on this one, she has both that inspiration, but also just such a contemporary vibe in modern relationships, liminal spaces, social cues, and performances too. On my review for the movie, the title says it's like an indie challengers, and in some ways it is. It's kind of like this toxic trifecta of personalities, and what we get from the movie feels so raw and bare bones, but in the best way. If you're a fan of small scale indies that pack some power, I highly recommend checking this movie out. At number 9, I have The Universal Theory by Tim Kroger. I reviewed this movie and gave it a solid score, but it really started haunting my thoughts and everywhere I went for weeks and months on after. I think this movie is beautifully made, and it is just so alien. On the surface, you could see this is a black and white movie, and it's foreign in its sensibilities. But upon watching it, you'll realize This movie is paced and just feels unlike any modern movie that has come out over the past year. And I don't know, while I still have my drawbacks on this movie, the music is outstanding and the cinematography is eye-popping and memorable. And how deep this story goes, I can't help but to appreciate the work on display here. I've watched this movie over again and have skimmed parts of it. I am very impressed over the work that was done here. So the Universal Theory is at my number 9. At my number 8, I Saw the TV Glow by Jane Schonbrun. We're All Going to the World's Fair was my number 1 favorite movie in 2020. 2021, I would say Licorice Pizza beat it, but still, both of those years I was knocked out at the vision We're All Going to the World's Fair showed. Only for a movie like I Saw the TV Glow to expand upon that in a scale that's like 3 times the size of We're All Going to the World's Fair. And upon my initial review, I had some complaints on the tone of the movie and some of the performances, but after rewatching it and enjoying it so much, I have forgiven a lot of those gripes. I still don't really like the music segments of this movie too much. I think it kind of breaks from the great pace this movie has, but I really enjoyed the commitment here, and I do like the idea of this being a modern Donnie Darko in some ways. And while I may still not be the hottest on Justice Smith's performance here, Bridget Lundy Payne gives one of my favorites all year. And the cameos with like Lindsay Jordan and Danny Amarelli, Connor O'Malley, it's just a really great piece of contemporary art. I really like this movie, and it goes into very unsettling places. Altogether, if I would have saw this movie in high school, I would have walked away from that theater like scratching my head at just how awesome so much of this was. And as an adult, I'm also so impressed, and I'm also happy at the rewatchability of this movie as well. At number 7, I hate doing these ties on a list, but for these, I think it is appropriate to put the two together because both the crews of this movie were pretty much the same, and I am talking about Challengers and Queer. Both movies were directed by Luca Guadagnino and featured the same screenwriter, editor, composers, cinematographer, and yet both of these movies could not be more different from the other. That being said, it is a very exciting time as a movie fan to be living in the peak of Luca Guadagnino, churning out all of these projects so quickly. I thought Challengers was just electric and had everybody talking. And Queer, for its high budget and difficult source material, it came off just so artistically resonant and ambitious. I think Luca's the type of filmmaker where we have so many different versions of what we're going to get from him. And it's exciting. Each one of them is usually pretty great. But both of his movies released this year have been some of his best work in a while. I still think We Are Who We Are is the best piece of work that he's done so far, but both Challengers and Queer are impressive. At number 6, I Have a Violent Nature. So, what can I say? This worked for me. I think some people saw the logline stating this as an ambient slasher, brought their expectations a little too high for this one, but it is very much like a traditional slasher with these ambient elements on here. And I thought it was a really funny and engaging movie. I think writer-director Chris Nash successfully got a horror audience to be thinking in another headspace while watching a slasher. And the kills here are ruthless. And just overall, I saw this movie a couple times. I saw it with people who enjoyed it and who have also felt mixed about it. And I mean, that's how you know this is a pretty cool movie. I'm excited to see what they do with the sequel, which is announced. So that's what's up. At number 5, I have Matt and Mara by Kazek Wadowski. Like this closeness, this is another small scale and interesting film. I mean, we have both Matt Johnson and Derek Campbell, two of my favorite young actors working right now, in a very complicated yet interesting connection. Matt being this successful David Foster Wallace-like writer, and Mara being an instructor for creative writing. The two of them may have had a relationship, and here we are spending this time with them across 80 minutes, and it's almost like a will they, won't they, but there's just something more deep and mature at the core of their relationship, and that's why I really enjoyed this movie. I bought into their performances so much, and as a fan of reading, I found it to be one of the most bookish movies in recent memory. Like, I think back on that movie American Fiction from 2022 and how horribly it failed at portraying like the publishing world. And then I see a movie like Matt and Mara, and it restores my faith in movies like this that are about authors. Really enjoyed this movie and I highly recommend it. At my number 4, I have Anora by Sean Baker. And this movie has really been sweeping the nation. It won the Palme d'Or, and it has a bunch of other accolades that it is earning, rightfully so. I love Sean Baker as a filmmaker. I think what we get here on Anora is his biggest production yet. I think objectively speaking, the performances here are the best in any movie all year. Mikey Madison as Annie. I mean, I watched her in better things, in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Scream, but when I watch this movie, I do not think of Mikey Madison, the actress. I think of her as Annie. I think that way about the entire cast here. It feels so authentic. And also the location. As someone who lives in Brooklyn, it is awesome to watch a movie that is taking place in like Brighton Beach and Coney Island and not Midtown or something. It's also impressive seeing Sean take on scenes far bigger than he's ever done. I think of the home invasion scene here. It's more explosive than I think anything on his previous movies, yet it's handled with such care. Like everything on this movie, it is studied, mature, and immersed. I am so happy that many are enjoying this movie, and there's so much to like here. It's so funny, and it's also so dramatic and deep in its themes. I also think it's rewatchable and accessible while also having the style of Sean's previous movies also on here. And that's why I have it at my number 4. At number 3, I have a movie that I actually saw in 2023, but it has held up all the way to now, and I'm talking about Evil Does Not Exist by Ryusuke Hamaguchi. And I love this filmmaker. I think this movie is so cool because it highlights the strengths of a filmmaker like this in a very different way. This movie isn't so dialogue driven, rather atmospheric, and the beautiful composition does a lot of the storytelling here. That's not to discount some of the beautiful visuals and characterization that this movie has, because it is rich. I love our main character and the village that he lives in, how the village and how it's known for its fresh water is getting challenged, as well as the relationships in this man's life, how it tragically gets challenged on this movie. I find it so compelling, and none of it is heavy-handed. This is a very thought-provoking piece of work, especially its ending and its title. I find this movie to be puzzling in the best way, and every time I watch it, the more I think about it for hours on. Still, I may not find it to be the strongest piece of work from this filmmaker, and yet I find it to be his most thematically digestible and also challenging in its own way. I really love this movie and I highly recommend it. And here we are with the last two. Yeah, like every list, these were hard to kind of put where they were. They're both fantastic movies, but after some thought, at my number 2, I have The Brutalist by Brady Corbett. What can be said about this movie that's not been said already? It is absolutely a labor of love, and everything on this handsomely made movie immersed me from the very beginning all the way into its 3.5-hour runtime. I was privileged enough to see this in 70mm, and I mean, just everything together, from the format to the music on this movie to the performances. There's such a dramatic heft and ambitious quality, and just how this movie focuses on the dark complexities of humans that a lot of movies would never really get into. I was just equally shocked, compelled, and so fascinated by this movie. I loved it. And even at its long length, it is so digestible. You do not want it to end. I'm so excited to own this movie whenever I can, and being able to rewatch and retread scenes. I just really am stunned by the work that was done here. I love Brady Corbett as a performer and as a filmmaker. And yeah, what he does here is his very best work. So congrats to everything that he's been earning for this. But it's not my favorite movie of the year. At my number 1, I have Good One by India Donaldson. New York filmmaker, very New York movie. It premiered at Sundance. I was very impressed by the work done on this movie, how this movie studies personalities and the characterization that we get amongst this teenage girl, her father, and the father's best friend taking a camping trip in upstate New York for a weekend. Right when you think that coming of age has done everything and you've grown kind of tired of the genre, here we get a movie that tackles something that we've not seen before. And I don't want to quite get into everything because much of the appeal here is not knowing what's to come, but how we get there and how the performances hold this movie on its shoulders. It is movie magic to witness. Seeing this in a theater, and the sounds of the forest and the very organic sounding music, I just lock into a euphoric state when I watch this movie. And with it being only 90 minutes, it's so easy to watch and recommend to others. I think what was accomplished here is nothing short of remarkable, and the performances, specifically Lily Collius, who is a newcomer, feels so authentic. Really love the subtlety of this movie. The movie doesn't just give the audience things and expect them to think a certain way. The characters on this movie are very deep, and you know, when you watch this and see what happens, you're just going to be thinking of what led to that and what comes after. And just the universal theme of being an adolescent and having an elder of some sort fail you. I think it was conveyed so well. Altogether, it's my favorite movie of the year. It's my number 1. That's a wrap. That's my top 10 of the year. I'm curious now, what was your top 10? What was your favorite, or what was your least favorite? Did you dislike Strange Darling as much as I did? Did you like Good One as much as I did? I mean, let me know. I want to say thank you once more for watching Doublemint Variety. Got some new stuff coming, so stay tuned, and peace out.